Hello everyone, I am Sini Shibu, Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Applications of the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. In today's lecture, I am going to cover computer memory. Specifically, I am going to talk about primary memory. Basically, the objective of this lecture is that the learner will be able to define memory, know the various types of memory that are in use, understand memory hierarchy, differentiate between ROM and RAM, enumerate different types of ROM and RAM. So let us come to what is computer memory. A computer memory is a storage space in a computer where data and instructions are stored. It is just similar to a human brain. The overall processing speed of a computer depends on how fast data and instructions can be fetched from the memory and provided to the CPU. The requirement of storage and speed of memory access is increasing day by day. The data and instructions are stored in memory as bits, which stand for binary digit. A bit, which is represented by a binary digit of 0 or 1, is the smallest unit of storage. Basically, 4 bits make a nibble, 8 bits make a byte, 1024 bytes make up a kilobyte, 1024 kilobytes make up a megabyte, 1024 megabytes make up a gigabyte, and 1024 gigabytes make up a terabyte. The computer scientists have classified memory into primary memory and secondary memory. Primary memory deals with minimizing the data access time, whereas the secondary memory takes care of the bulk storage. Let us now concentrate on what is the computer memory hierarchy. As you see in this figure, the computer memory hierarchy consists of different steps, and at each level there are some storage devices. If you look at the lowest of the hierarchy levels, you would find optical discs, magnetic tapes, and magnetic disks, which make up the secondary memory. On top of this hierarchy is the disk cache. Above it is the primary memory or the main memory. Above the primary memory comes the cache, and finally at the top of the hierarchy are the CPU registers. If you look at this figure, as we go down the hierarchy, there is an increase in capacity and access time, whereas if we go up the hierarchy, there is an increase in cost per bit. The memory can thus be classified as cache memory, primary memory, and secondary memory. We are going to talk about primary memory in this lecture today. Primary memory is further classified as ROM and RAM. ROM can further be classified as PROM, EPROM, EEPROM, whereas RAM can be classified as SRAM and DRAM. The secondary memory consists of many of the devices which I am going to cover in another module. Let us now come to what is cache memory. A cache memory is a small-sized volatile computer memory that stores frequently used computer programs, applications, and data so as to provide high-speed data access to the processor. It is the fastest memory in a computer and is typically integrated onto the motherboard. It can either be primary or secondary cache memory, with primary cache memory directly integrated into the processor. It can also be a disk cache, where a reserved portion on the disk stores and provides access to frequently accessed data and applications from the disk. When a processor requests data for processing, if it is available on the cache memory, it does not need to fetch the data from the main memory or the hard disk, and thus the data access speed gets increased. Have a look at what is the primary memory. It is also known as the main memory or primary storage. It is made up of semiconductor memory. The memory area in a computer system where data is stored temporarily for quick access by the computer's CPU is the primary memory. The processor can access running execution applications and services that are temporarily stored in the primary memory. As soon as the computer starts, the primary memory gets loaded with the base operating system, all running software utility and user interface, any application program that is to be executed. The system processor then executes these programs. The primary memory is a volatile storage, which means that all its contents get erased when the power is turned off. Now let us have a look at what is the secondary memory. The computer memory that is used for bulk storage on a long-term basis is the secondary memory. The magnetic and optical memories, which are not directly accessed by a computer processor, form the secondary memory. It allows a user to store large volumes of data that may be instantly and easily retrieved, transported, and used by applications and services. It consists of all permanent storage devices like hard disk drives, floppy disk drives, flash drives, magnetic tapes, and other types of internal, external storage media. It is a non-volatile memory, which means that it can store and retain data even if the computer is not connected to electrical power. It has large storage capacity ranging from several megabytes to terabytes. Now let us see the difference between primary and secondary memory. If you see, the data accessed by the CPU is direct in primary memory, whereas it is indirect in the secondary memory. The technology used for manufacturing primary memory is semiconductor chips, whereas for secondary memory, magnetic disks and optical disks are used. The type of storage is temporary in primary memory, whereas it is permanent in the secondary memory. The cost per bit of storage is very expensive for the primary memory, whereas it is cheaper for the secondary memory. The nature of the memory is volatile in case of primary memory, and it is non-volatile in case of a secondary memory. If we talk about storage, then the primary memory has limited storage capacity, whereas the secondary memory has bulk storage capacity. If we talk about interaction with the microprocessor, yes, primary memory has a fast interaction with the microprocessor, whereas the secondary memory has a slow interaction with the microprocessor. The examples of primary memory are RAM, ROM, PROM, registers, etc. And the examples of secondary memory are magnetic tapes, optical disks, hard disks, floppy disks, flash memory, etc. Now let us talk about read-only memory, which is the ROM. The memory from which data can only be read but not written to is known as a read-only memory. It is a non-volatile in nature, which means information is stored permanently in such memories during manufacture. ROM stores the instructions that are required to start a computer, and these instructions comprise of the bootstrap. ROM chips are not only used in computer but also in other electronic items like washing machines and microwave ovens. It is cheaper and more reliable than RAMs, and the contents cannot be accidentally changed in a ROM. Let us now see the various types of ROMs available. The first type of ROM is the PROM, which stands for Programmable Read-Only Memory. It is a read-only memory that can be modified only once by a user. It can be programmed only once and is not erasable. The second type of ROM is the EPROM, which stands for Erasable and Programmable Read-Only Memory. The contents can be easily erased by exposing it to ultraviolet light for a duration of up to 40 minutes. The third category of ROM is known as EEPROM, which stands for Electrically Erasable and Programmable Read-Only Memory. It is programmed and erased electrically in about 4 to 10 milliseconds. Any location can be easily and selectively erased and programmed. The process of reprogramming is flexible, but it is also a very slow process. Now let us come to what is Random Access Memory or RAM. It is a form of computer memory that stores data and machine instructions that are currently being used and which can be accessed randomly. In other direct access storage media such as hard disks, CD read-write, DVD read-writes, and other older magnetic tapes and drum memory, the time required to read and write data items varies significantly depending on the physical location of the data on the recording medium. This happens due to the mechanical limitations such as media rotation speeds and arm movement. Data items can be read from or written to RAM in almost the same amount of time, irrespective of the actual physical location of the data in the memory. Now let us have a look at what are the various types of RAM. The first type of RAM is known as static RAM or SRAM. It holds data bits in its memory as long as power is supplied to it. It does not require to be periodically refreshed. It provides faster data access and is more expensive than DRAM. It is used for implementing cache memory and on video cards. The second type of RAM is known as dynamic RAM or DRAM. It is used in PCs that stores each bit of data in a separate passive electronic component inside an integrated circuit board. Each electrical component has two states of values in one bit called 0 and 1. This component needs to be refreshed often, otherwise the information gets lost. DRAM has one capacitor and one transistor per bit. Let us now look at the difference between SRAM and DRAM. The SRAM is an on-chip memory with small access time, hence SRAMs are faster, whereas DRAMs are off-chip memory chips with large access time, hence it is slower. It has smaller storage capacity and consumes more power, whereas DRAM has larger storage capacity and consumes less power. SRAM is made up of flip-flops or transistors, whereas DRAMs are made up of capacitors and transistors. Data is stored in the form of voltage in SRAM, whereas it is stored in the form of charge in a DRAM. SRAMs are expensive, whereas DRAMs are cheaper. SRAMs are used in cache memory, whereas DRAMs are used in main memory. It is complex to design and implement an SRAM, whereas it is simple to design and implement a DRAM. It does not need a refreshing circuitry, but a DRAM requires a refreshing circuitry. So with that, I conclude my lecture. The main points of this lecture were: memory is an essential part of the computer system. It is classified as cache memory, primary memory and secondary memory. Primary memory is further classified as ROM and RAM, whereas ROM can be classified as PROM, EPROM and EEPROM. RAM can be classified as SRAM and DRAM. I hope I have made you understand what are the memory concepts used in computer. Have a happy learning and thank you.